Hey everyone, good morning. It's me, Lindsay. Thanks for tuning in to Moms on the Left University. Today we're going to be talking about the federal judiciary. I thought with the swearing in of Neil Gorsuch as our newest Supreme Court Justice, it would be a good idea for us to review the federal court system and how cases get to the Supreme Court. So there are three basic levels to the federal court system, which are established. The federal judiciary is established in Article 3 of the Constitution. Those levels are the district court, of which there are 93 in the United States, the 12 circuit courts, where you can appeal the decisions of the district courts, and of course one Supreme Court. All federal judges are appointed rather, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Appointed rather than elected. We call this an independent judiciary. Founding fathers thought this was really important because it ensured that justices always made decisions based on the law rather than trying to get reelected, like as a popularity contest or whatever. The types of cases mainly that the federal courts hear, their jurisdiction, involve either federal law or the Constitution, cases where the United States is a party, either they're suing or being sued. And then if a citizen of one state sues a citizen of another state, that would get taken care of in the federal court system because the state court then wouldn't be impartial. To get to the Supreme Court actually reviews cases that are submitted to it, and they actually get to decide which cases they want to hear. Less than 1% of cases that are appealed to the Supreme Court are actually argued in the Supreme Court. And most of the time, those cases involve either some sort of discrepancy between the lower courts, like between the district court and the circuit court, or like an egregious error was made during the arguing of the case. Then the Supreme Court would probably take it. There are some instances where the Supreme Court actually has original jurisdiction where a case can start there, and those are either where a state is, one state is suing another state, or a state is either suing or being sued by the federal government. That can start in the Supreme Court, and then also cases that involve an ambassador can start in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is very different than what you think of when you think of like Law and Order or whatever, those types of cases. In the Supreme Court, attorneys submit briefs, to the 9 justices ahead of time. The justices review those, and then sort of when you make oral arguments in the Supreme Court, it's more the justices asking you questions or kind of a discussion of the points in your case. So it's not like if you watch on TV where you're like calling witnesses and submitting evidence and stuff like that. The 9 justices that are sitting on the Supreme Court are all appointed for life, which is why it's so significant that Neil Gorsuch, who is so young, was just appointed. I think he was like 49 or something. So because there's 9 justices, it's rare for there to be a tie, but there have been cases where there've been a tie. Occasionally justices recuse themselves if they feel like they can't be impartial in a case. And then in like the last term, after Scalia passed away, there were only 8 justices. And so that one of the big cases, the immigration case, ended in a tie. In those instances, the ruling of the lower courts stands. And kind of what the Supreme Court says, if the Supreme Court makes a decision, if it's not a tie, that's kind of the end of the road. The Supreme Court is kind of the ultimate check on the other branches of government in the United States. So hopefully this was a good refresher and review and reminder for you of the federal court system and the Supreme Court and how cases get there. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.